Starting with multiplication, again we are following the same multiplication rules we had on the previous sheet, where two positives lead to a positive, two negatives lead to a positive as well. When the signs are different, that's when we end up with a negative. So we're going to use order of operations to take care of this, and we'll start with the left two numbers, and we'll do two different multiplications here. You could do it all in one step if you're comfortable with that. 2 times -3, well, a positive times a negative is going to make a negative. Alright, and the result of 2 times -3 was -6. We now multiply that by -4. Well, this is 2 negatives, so the result's going to be positive, and 6 times 4, 24. And that's about all there is to it. If you follow the steps of order of operations, moving left to right, and you use your rules of signs up here, you should be good. And we move on to division, which is very closely related to multiplication. It's the opposite operation, so it follows the same rules. The two positives make a positive, and so on, that we've looked at in the last two examples. We're going to do this division of negative divided by another negative. So the result's going to be positive, and we're dividing 24 by 3. The result then is positive 8. And that's about it. Just one note, we could also see this question set up like this, and we haven't covered a lot of fraction material yet, but a fraction is just a division. In fact, that's what that fraction bar means, is that this is a division question, and so we would do the division the same way, that a negative divided by a negative makes a positive, and 24 divided by 3 is 8, and that's it. As we move on to order of operations, we're just going to take everything that we've learned so far and combine it and put it together into what look like more challenging questions, but if we follow our rules, it should be just about the same level of difficulty. It's just a few more steps. So starting out, we've got a few things happening here. We've got some inner brackets and an outer bracket, so we know what we've talked about so far. We start with the inner ones, and within the inner brackets we have to follow a set of order of operations as well. So we'll move from the left bracket first to the right bracket. So let's start there. I'm going to keep my outer brackets going. First thing I have is 3 subtract 4 is -1 squared. We know how to deal with that now. And over here, the right-hand set of brackets, we've got 2 negatives divided together. The result is positive 3. And we've got an exponent on the outside we'll have to deal with later. Next step will be that we've got -1 squared, which we now know comes to positive 1. To that, we're going to add 3 and square it. So what we're really doing is squaring 4, which the result is 16. And the last question we'll do in order of operations, and actually in the integers unit, is something that looks like this. Again, we haven't dealt with fractions a lot here, but just think of this as a division question where this fraction bar is the division sign, because that is actually what it means. So what we're going to do, and one other kind of tip that we need to keep in mind, is that we need to complete the operations on the top and the bottom of the fraction completely first before we go and do the division, or else we're breaking order of operations. So that's something we haven't talked about yet, but just make sure when you're working in a fraction situation like this, just complete the top and complete the bottom before you move on. So what that looks like is 3 plus -4 really means 3 minus 4 on top, and down the bottom, -5, well, double negative, that really means add, right? So -5 add 6 gets us to, let's just rewrite it. -5 add 6, and we move on. Now at the top we can do 3 minus 4 to get -1. On the bottom, -5, so we're 5 below, we go up by 6, we end up at +1, and when we divide a negative divided by a positive, the result's negative, and 1 divided by itself is 1.